Sir. Hello, I'm Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram, and this is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 219. Hopefully, you guys had an amazing Tuesday. Hope we got amazing guests for you this Tuesday evening. I guess it's actually Wednesday, Tuesday, however you want to look at it at this point. Green Bicycles, Patrick, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Eagle? Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's still I'm on the West Coast, so we're still talking Tuesday.
Nice.
For another
the time thing gets me anymore. I have such a hard time dealing with it because the show became, a little bigger than I thought it would. So like it goes everywhere. We have some viewers in the UK, Germany, Canada, and so actually I almost avoid throwing out times anymore because I'm almost wrong at whatever time. The only time we've come to know anymore are 20s. Dabs on the 20s. That's about the only times we call out anymore around here. Because according to chat, it's always 420 somewhere.
Awesome, I gotcha. So yeah, it's cool.
So how was your day? Well, I guess. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, there's a little bit of delay.
The other thing That was the other thing I forgot to go over in the prelims. If at any point I cut you off, blow right past my bald ass because this is your show. And just kind of keep going, and I'll jump in wherever. Zoom can be a little bit of a butthead.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been on Zoom, and and that little bit of voice delay might I'll try to get used to that. But other than that, no, let's do this. I'm excited about it. It's kind of cool how the technology and you can beam out to the whole world for pretty much nothing. No expense except your time, and it's awesome stuff. And I like what you're doing. I've tuned into your show a couple times now, and I admire your stamina. You do it just about every night, don't you? I apologize. I'm kind of new to this, but I can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, no, that was me. My mic. Okay. I totally had mic off. Yeah. Okay. Another one of these fun episodes starting off. So before we go any further, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? I kind of skipped over that in the beginning.
Oh, no worries. Well, my company's Grean Bicycles. We do a podcast every Friday night that's very similar to yours, except it's not. I can only go about 2 hours, sometimes 3 at the most. But no, we talk about weed. I'm over here in just north of Humboldt County, so there's a lot of history here, and there's a lot, and on the southern Oregon border, and I'm in a couple of big, real growing areas that I've had the opportunity to explore and learn from. So my show talks a lot about a lot of the local Humboldt County kind of centric with what's going on in the industry. And no, I thoroughly enjoy doing the show too. So yeah, you can find me on YouTube on Friday nights at 7 Pacific time. My products are sold on Amazon, but we could talk about that at another time.
Oh no, we work our way right through that. It's all part of your history, and you've helped a lot of people out with them products. I was thinking that before the show. I mean, it's been a few years now. You've been sending samples for the longest time to a lot of people, and my hat's off to you, man. That's a commitment right there all in itself. And from what I heard, nothing but great things about the product. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you. But there's a little bit of self-interest because once I get people to try the product, that's what it takes, and usually the word spreads. It's actually been very fortunate. Got a lot of good advertising through the social media, and the product's selling well all over. Actually, I'm pretty proud of this. I sold a package to Czechoslovakia. Now, what the hell? What the hell? Come on now.
That's pretty damn cool. That's really cool.
So yeah, yeah.
Pretty awesome.
No, I started business actually in 2013 as Green Bicycles Organic Garden Center here in Crescent City, California. And kind of, I didn't know what to do. It's a journey. I started going on the stepping stones, and it kind of developed into having some products. So I have two basic plant nutrients, a dry amendment mix and a dry tea that I kind of worked the kinks out through my garden center. And then I packaged and labeled them and started selling them. So that's kind of that's what I've done in the last 7 or 8 years.
Nice. So when did you actually get started with the cannabis plant? When was your first introduction? Because I know there's a lot of history up before Green Bicycles there. When was the first time you actually started smoking? When did Lady Cannabis enter your life?
Well, I'm going to date myself. Probably mid to the late 1960s. I was a young kid. I'm not going to completely date myself, but I went and visited an older relative. This was the 60s. It was a little different time. And I think it might have been New Year's Eve. And it was the first time I think I saw cannabis. And I think I tried it then. I don't remember a whole lot about it, but and that's not when I started smoking by any means, but my first time it was like, oh, that's what it is. That's what it smells like. That's what it tastes like. I don't remember at all like getting high. And I think I have a common experience later in life. I think it was, in high school where the first time I started smoking cannabis to get high, the first couple of times it didn't really do anything for me. But when it did, it's like, I met a lover that that I've had a relationship with since that time. In the mid 70s, I moved up to Butte County, California. And this was back, and I had a relative who started growing, they called it Sensimilia back then. It was new, back before that, everything was usually seeded and stems and brick kind of weed. And they started growing, I want to say in 74, 75, and that mid-70, real early in the outdoor game in Northern California. So I've been exposed to the growing scenes for quite a while. And so that's when the first time I smoked it, and the first time I really became aware of the plant and how it was grown was, that's quite a bit long, about 30 years ago. Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
I'd wear it like a badge of honor.
Yeah, yeah. I've been very fortunate though. A lot of people have actually had a lot more I've never lost a job. Well, maybe, I guess. Once I had a job, I failed a lot of drug tests to get into jobs, which sucked back in the 80s with Nancy Reagan and all that. Because I pretty much smoked all the time. I mean, I did. So yeah, I never went to jail over it or anything, anything like that. So I've been one of the very lucky ones because I've grown it, and even before it was legal, of course. And yeah, so that's on some of the backs of some of the real sacrifices that have been made, because it's not too long ago it was prison time. It was real. You could lose your freedom. And here on the West Coast, that's definitely really not the case anymore. But it's not always been this way.
So can you tell me about a little bit about your first growing experiences?
Absolutely.
How did it all kick off with the grow there?
Thank you for asking. I love questions about me, by the way. This is going to go over really well. I helped the first time I had indoor growing experience. It was another relative who was actually very good at it. Learned up in Seattle in the early '80s. That was real early in the indoor scene, actually, I believe. He brought his wares down to where I was staying and taught me the trade a little bit. Started trimming. Started helping him take care of things, and he started teaching me some secrets. And it was basic organic methods, soil and what do I want, earth juice was kind of like cutting edge in a way back in that time. I got a chance to move up to Crescent City. I've done a lot of actually career moves. I've been a number of things, but I was a high school teacher. So I moved up into Crescent City, and I never really grew on my own until I bought my own house, because I never had a good landlord, and I think it's not a good idea to do it in someone else's house if they don't want you to. So I never did. I followed it. I've dreamed about it, and so when I got my house in 2000, let's say, I built a grow room and started reading some books. I got a couple 600 HPS sodium lamps. I thought I was king shit at Turd Island, and I got some clones and started the process.
What was the cones?
Oh, that's it. Oh, I went back. I drove. I live about 6, 7 hours from where I was living with where my cousin was. So I hit him up. Well, I see you're muting your mic when I'm talking. Okay. Um, and I drove there, actually, Chico, California. Picked up. I remember one was blackberry. I think I got a Jack Herrera and maybe one others. I brought them home, and they had a bunch of mites on them. Once I looked close at them, and I was kind of bummed, but that's part of the game when you're getting clones, is getting mites. So figured out, I grew them out. They were I was so proud. I was so proud of them. I think I might, but looking back, it was kind of sad. I thought it was really good. It wasn't horrible. Grew it out, loved it. I just love the process. I love the plant. I love the kind of the MacGyver of it, building the grow rooms and the timers, and there's a bit of science to it, and in mechanics. So really enjoyed that part. Enjoyed looking at the plant, enjoyed growing the plant, and I enjoyed the product. I always was kind of dreaming. My goal was, I always wanted to go down to San Francisco because they had a lot of big dispensaries down there. A couple of Vapor Room, the Green Door, I think. There were a number of real big ones that were really cool places. And back in that time, they would buy cannabis from the street. In fact, it was kind of a pain in the butt for them. So my big deal was I was going to grow me some cannabis and take it down there and sell it to those dispensaries, because I knew what I was doing. Well, the first time I went down there, I took them I don't know, I have no idea what it was now, but I was all big and smiling. I climbed down the stairs and got to the buyer, and he took me to the back room, and he laughed. It was so painful, that oh my goodness. It was like, oh, I thought I was doing so good. He kind of laughed, and I had to actually, back then it wasn't legal like it is now, and I actually had to drive through. I call it the Gauntlet in Humboldt County, where they are looking for cars with cannabis. I mean, that's what they look for, big time, on the 101. Anyways, I had to drive down through the Gauntlet with the poundage in my car. Not only that, when I got turned down there, I had to drive back through the Gauntlet. So it was a double whammy. But what it did was it made me stick my nose to the grindstone, so to speak. And then I started really researching it. And what I did, I tried every line, every chemical line. I fell under that umbrella where, oh, I'm not spending enough money. It's not that, it's not complicated enough. I really need 7 bottles instead of 5. I needed to go. So I went down that rabbit holes for a while. Started looking online, and I think you mentioned Subcool, haven't you? A couple of times. So anyways, I ran across this guy named Subcool on,
Yes, sir. Good friend of mine.
yeah, he actually became a very good friend of mine also. But ran across him on rollitup.org. I think he had a little area about super soils. So that was kind of new to me. So I got his recipe, got all excited. Um, Grew out some plants using that method. This is probably 4 years into me growing regularly. So I started I started getting better and better. But when I started using those organic living soil methods, it kicked it up to another level. It actually became it it took it to another level where it was just obviously better. And I know that because they started buying it from me down in San Francisco. So and actually it got to the point where they looked forward to me to come down there. So I knew I was, it was really cool. Um, there was no way to get a hold of Subcool because I was kind of like, this guy is one of the few guys back then that would like share their knowledge or give their secrets. Everyone didn't really want to tell you too much about how they did it, but he was really open about it. And I always wanted, there was no way I did a little research. I actually started becoming a fanboy. I bought a t-shirt. I bought some of his books. But I just couldn't get a hold of him to say, hey, you really upped my game and growing. One of his books talked about his strains, and he had a very, I don't know if he was the original writer, but it was very graphic on how he presented his cannabis, and it always sounded like the best thing in the world. And there was one about the red clay scissor hash or something. It was like, God, I want to get it. And I think the strain was Vortex. So I went down to my first beans I got them down in Oakland. I can't think of the dispensary now, but I picked up a pack of Vortexes of other things and grew it out, and number of different phenos in it. And one of them was just very, very special. It was very special. So yeah, that's where I kind of got infamous over that one. But other than that, that's a little bit of my story, I guess. How how are we doing? Are we
Oh,
doing
come on.
okay?
You can't take it right up to the cup.
What
Oh,
now?
yeah, yeah. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. You
Oh,
can't
good.
take me right up to the cup and then not walk me through the cup. That's a whole story all in itself.
Oh, okay. The cup. Yes, you ready to go for that one? Okay.
I've never gotten to hear, I've heard the legendary story from the other side, but I have yet to hear this side. So I would be honored to hear this side of the story. Please.
Okay. Well, it's not going to make me look real good, but we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and we'll go down there. Anyways, yeah, like I said, I kind of became a bit of a, and this is a true story, by the way. Um, they were going to have the first High Times Cannabis Cup in the United States in San Francisco in 2010, and I read about it, and in my mind I said, you know what, Subcool's got to be there. I'm not shitting you. This is how I thought about it, and I said, I wonder how, I had no idea what the event looked like, how it happened. In my mind, a bunch of growers got together in a big auditorium and everybody smoked weed and they had judges, and that was kind of what I was picturing. So I was thinking, I wonder if I could go to that. And it turned out that you had to be a dispensary to even enter. And I had two 600-watt lights in a room in my garage, and so I kind of put together some paperwork to be a dispensary. I called it Grean Bicycles because I was going to have a bicycle frame building business a few years back, and I just kind of liked the name. So I know it was kind of a spur of the moment. So I took the name and made myself a kind of a phony dispensary, and I decided to enter the Cannabis Cup because I thought I would get to meet Subcool. True story so far, I think. So far we doing okay. Let me go back to the Vortex and the part that's not going to look real good on my part. So I'm just going to get it out there because it was kind of a mistake that I did. when I grow weed, I do a couple things and actually once I started getting with subcool soils, I'm gonna go back a little bit. I started using compost teas, which I didn't really get that from subcool. I kind of got that from other gardening methods that I looked into. But anyways, I had a combination of subcool super soil, um, compost teas, vortex, and then I do a good cure. I have a different way. Now people will get in arguments all the time about this, but I always trim wet, dry it out until it's completely crispy, and then I store it in jars and seal the jars, and I don't ever open the jars for at least 2 or 3, 4 weeks. I break down anyways, that's a process I use. A lot of people disagree with me, but when you open that jar after 4 weeks, you either know right away if it's something really dank or something, or if it's kind of nasty. So anyways, one of the phenotypes of that vortex was a real kind of salt and pepper one. And then one of them, when I opened the jar and smelled it, it was like, oh my God. And just right, this is a warning. I'm warning you folks if there's kids listening. But as soon as I got a whiff of that jar, I said, this is horrible. But I said, if God had a pussy, this is what it would smell like. So that's where the name came from. So I called that phenotype of vortex God's pussy. I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought it was humorous, but I really did think it kind of described, but it turns out it's not that humorous, and it caused a lot of trouble down the road. But anyway, so I had a really killer phenotype of vortex, and I can't. It was really just funky, kind of a diaper smell. It's hard to describe, but it was just really good. And when you took a hit of it, it just rang your bell. It's just that kind of, you take a hit and then you got to grab onto the counter because you get a little wobbly, and it tasted so nice. So that's kind of what that helped me decide to enter into the Cannabis Cup, which back then, I don't know how much it was changed, but it was like $1,000 in 2 ounces. It was crazy. I forgot the exact, but I think it might even be a lot more. So I was willing to spend, and because I thought, okay, I'll get to go see Subcool and show him the weed that I grew that from his seeds. And that's how I entered the cup. So I got the bad part out of the way, because I don't even really say that too much anymore. I get asked about it, but it didn't help, like with with my teaching career. I don't know what I can say about that. So I resigned as a high school. I was a science and math teacher at high school. So I resigned, and it was like, okay, what do I do now? So I kind of had to figure things out for a couple of years, and that's how I started the Grean Bicycles nutrient business after just kind of
Sounds like you set yourself up to be. Kind of sounds like you could have set yourself up to be the coolest high school teacher ever.
Well, in my opinion, I was anyways, but we won't go there. But anyways, actually, I enjoy teaching high school. But so anyways, that's why I entered. I got down to the cup. Well, I think it was the samples were due a week before the cup. So I drove down, I think, to Oakland to a testing facility. I can't think it off the top of my head. They're pretty famous, one of the early places that tested for THC and CBD and that kind of thing. And that's where we had to drop it off. I got there like driving. It's a 7-hour drive for me just to get there. Then I had to turn around and go home because the cup was the next weekend after that. So anyways, I drive my butt off. I get down there. There's no parking, blah, blah, blah. I get there. There's this big waiting room. Everyone was like really cocky and talking about how good they're from Mendocino. And it was just so kind of intimidating. And I got called back into an office, and the girl who took my sample, she opened up the jars, and I just remember her word saying, she said, "This is funky." She was, I'm gonna roll a joint of this. So right away she took it out and rolled a joint. And I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna get stoned with someone who works at High Times. Yeah. And she goes, okay, you can go now. So I left and went back the next week. It was just mobs of people. I did get a chance to talk to Subcool a little bit, like at his booth, but it was just like, hey, Subcool, but and it was nothing like I expected, yeah, I've never, and yeah, I ended up winning first place in the sativa category with it was rough. It was pretty rough for them to say God's pussy, but on I do it. I do in my defense when I accepted the reward, because that is a big deal to a seed company. It truly is, and and I knew that, so I did give a shout out and said this is really Vortex Seeds from Subcool. So I'm pretty sure that's on record, but I did say that once I got up, because once they announced my name, there's another little quick thing is I was sitting there and it was like kind of surreal in a way, but I said if I get up and go accept that award, my whole life will change. I know I won't be able to teach her anymore. I knew all, these things didn't surprise me. So it was like in probably a split second, I thought it all through. It's kind of like one of those, everything goes past you. And I said, hell, I'm gonna accept this award. So I got up and I'm definitely not a public speaker and probably mumbled a few things, but I hope it came out coherently, but I did say it was Subcool strain Vortex. And I'm pretty sure that got out because his packs went from $50 a pack to I think $150 a pack a week later. So I think the word did get out that it was Vortex. But anyways, that's my high time story. That's what kind of got me infamous, kind of opened some doors, closed some other doors. But that definitely wasn't a golden ticket for anything. Actually, some ways it was a burden, but publicity is a weird thing. I ended up making actually my product work really well. They're really sustainable and natural and organic and very easy to use. So no, it's worked out pretty well so far. It's been an interesting journey, that's for sure. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I mean, you might as well keep on going there. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's your story. You might as well walk us right through it. So, I mean, after that, I mean, what happened after the cup there? I mean, how
I,
did how much longer and what was the process into getting things back on after that? Sounds like like you said, it didn't just like pop right off. It sounds like there was a little bit of you know ups and downs there before things
oh
got
yeah.
sturdied back off on
Oh,
the gambling
yeah,
strip.
absolutely. We had a little downtime for a while where it was a lot of, I didn't know what with a lot of, because I own a house and you have mortgage payments and bills and thankfully I made it through that whole period, uh, keeping all that together. But I definitely had to get scrappy and get and and uh, and be on my toes for a while. It definitely is much better now. It's a lot more stable, and the future looks really promising. Once I won the cup, I did have it was kind of a surreal experience, and this is a true statement. This is true to also is I'm driving home, I'm going through Southern Humboldt, and I stopped off at one of the grocery stores. I have my trophy with me, and I stopped off at one of the grocery stores where I used to get some of my things in Arcata, California. And as I walked in the door, one of the other guys said to one of the other workers, he said, "I wonder who won the cannabis cup." I shit you not. And I looked at him, I said, "I did." And they were like, "Come on." And I said, "I swear I won the cannabis cup." They said, "No, you didn't." I said, "Come on." And I said, "Let me go get it." So I went and got it and showed it to him. So that was kind of weird when I walked in the store and they said, "I wonder who won the cannabis cup." And it happened to be me, by the way. So that was kind of weird. I got home and I was so proud of myself. I didn't know. And then I looked on the internet and I said, "Oh shit!" Subcool was pissed off. High Times magazine was pissed off. All kinds of these groups were pissed off. It was just like really humbling and really a weird experience because and it had a lot to do with the name. Basically, that's what it did. That was the big controversy. Um, and I honestly, it was like people read into my motivations for that or whatever, and there weren't any really. And that was really strange to see other people who you don't know making assumptions and stuff about you, but that's part of the new world. That's what we're doing. So it was a bit of a shock realizing it. I called High Times magazine right away and I said, hey, I didn't mean anything bad about it, whatever. So, and actually I don't even think they ever mentioned that word in their magazine. I'm not sure. I don't think they did. But they didn't even mention my name either, by the way. I think they mentioned Subcools a lot, which is good because he was a big advertiser for High Times. So that's kind of the story there. And I couldn't get a hold of Subcool and talk to him after that, but I did years later. I think it was at an Emerald Cup, probably, I don't know, 2017, 2018, something like that. I did meet up with Subcool and I said, hey, do you remember me? And he laughed and he kind of hugged me and he said, man, dude, you made me so much money. And then anyways, after that, we didn't become close at that point, but there was acknowledgement that there was no anger from him. And I still looked up to him. I still do. And later on, actually, my company started doing his charge packs until he passed away. We were actually manufacturing his version of for the build a super soil. So that was actually quite a shame and quite a shock to all of us that happened. He's really missed. He was a real unique individual, that's for sure. But yeah, I had I was still a fanboy even at the end, or when I would get a text from him or a phone call from him. It was I got a little bit of the butterflies, I guess. But always super nice to me after, always in person. He was super nice to me. I think there was some hard feelings at first because of the name, which looking back, I completely understand. But yeah, miss that guy.
I miss him too. I've had a lot. I knew him through a lot of those years. So, and I do miss him. It was good to hear your side of all that too, because I've heard the other side so many times, and I don't necessarily think it was, he was mad about it in that way. It's just I think it was more of a competition thing. I think it almost scarred him for entering cups after that because he's much after my own heart like that. I'd rather just stay out of competition or win competition. And to take your own, in that in particular year, it was vortex, right?
No, I don't know. I don't
It was
know.
strain against strain, and
Well, yeah, actually, he did grow Vortex, and I was growing Vortex up against him. I don't remember exactly. I think he got like 24th place though, but yeah, I think that probably didn't. Yeah, I don't know that we all probably have a little bit of a ego to us. That's why that's kind of human nature where you want to get that's kind of drives progress a little bit is trying so we all want to do well and excel. And to be honest with you, I've never entered a contest after that. It just left a real bad taste in my mouth because yeah, I don't feel the need to get acknowledged like that. I know I'm a badass. Oh my goodness.
I can appreciate that. That's the way you should feel about yourself. There's no harm in feeling like that. You know what I mean?
No, it helps.
Sometimes that's what it takes to go to the next level. That's for sure. A little kick in your butt sometimes. Yeah, that's awesome.
No, and it did feel good to go through that.
So, please.
No, I was going to say it also felt good going through that process. I don't know, analogy to Rocky movie where you go down there and get your butt whipped, and then you can actually, it's not something I've never really seen before, is where you can actually, put your nose to the grindstone and work at it and actually try to make things better, and it starts getting better and you start seeing progress, and And yeah, it went from, actually literally laughter and just being humiliated to like being a cool guy coming down, and they look, I just make a phone call, tell them when I'm coming, and the doors were open. So yeah, that felt good to go through that process. And yeah, I think that's a good, I don't know if I've really experienced that before, but it's something that it's kind of cool to do. I did a little bit with my business too. Like I said, my business first couple of years, I didn't do anything. Got on the Silk Road a little too often, probably back in the day. 2013 is when I actually traded 9 clones for a month's rent at a outbuilding at a feed store, and I just I literally put together that the gardening cycle business on a shoestring pretty much. I built all the furniture and got it from a scrapyard and opened the store and learned a lot, learned a ton about retail and business. And it's been a fantastic education. And then once I came up with a product, okay, what do you do? Okay, you have a good product. What do you do? What's the next step? Well, then you got to get a label. You got to get then you got to get like it's certified by the state, and then you need a corporation probably to keep yourself from getting in trouble. Then you need an assurance policy that protects you, and so it's a great learning experience about business, which actually I find fascinating, and I really like it. And it's easy to like business on the upswing, which that's kind of the only wave I've surfed for the last 5 years. But it is a great ride to actually build that from an idea to actually the sound of a cash register ringing, so to speak. It's actually it's I don't know. I'm really proud of I don't know if you can see behind me my map, but I sell all of the United States. I've never paid for an advertisement, so I'm really proud of that. They got it's word of mouth, and that's why I'm here. Is no, I've been very fortunate, and I mention this a lot in my videos too. Is when I have a lot of really interesting guests on, and in the field, especially out here. I work with some of the most creative, intelligent, compassionate people that I've ever met. Extremely smart and wise. You get the riffraff and the shady people and the people who really don't put because it's a lot of work, definitely. And I've seen a lot of people come and go, but I've also met a lot of really interesting people, and I feel truly blessed to be working around this plant. The people I get to meet, the shows. I don't know if you've ever been to a place like, or an event like the Emerald Cup, which is an amazing. I'm sure there's some people watching who've been to the Emerald Cup, but just would blow you away at the scope and level of what the cannabis industry is doing out, in the last few years, and just mind blowing. And it's like I look around and say, I'm a part of this. That's how I make my living, and I feel very fortunate. Who knows what's going to happen? It's easy to be pessimistic about the overall picture in the future or whatever, but so far, I got to consider myself very blessed that I get to work with this plant and the people that surround it. I'm just rambling on and on. I apologize.
No, the worries. Oh no, this is all about you. I kind of
Well,
explained that in the beginning. This is a chance to get to know you, our chance to get to know you. So, how better than to hear it right out of your mouth? You know, I haven't been to an Emerald Cup, and I've been to many a high times. I've been a judge for high times a few
oh, really?
times,
Cool.
and but never an Emerald Cup. I believe that's a whole different. And I almost, I hate to say this, I kind of view high times almost like more like a traveling circus, almost anymore. It has a good culture, but it just town to town. It's not. They've taken some of the speciality out of it by so many events. Uh, there can only be, in my opinion, so many good winners. I mean, it's a cup for God's sakes. You know what
No,
I mean? So to have 50 different awards or whatever, I don't know.
No,
it should be narrowed down or whatever. But the
no,
Emerald Cup, it's especially anymore, it's more business, and but the Emerald Cup more is more culture. You know, that's more of a, I would think, a better event to go. Everybody dreams of going to the Emerald Cup at one point or another.
no. It's quite a scene. I've been to a number of cannabis shows. Yeah, some kind of the high times one's kind of gone a bit corporate. And if you just do a, if you're good with numbers a little bit and start doing the numbers of what they're doing as far as entry fees and fees to get in the building and how much it costs to have a booth at one of those places, and they're making bank. It's about a lot. They're making some serious cash. Actually, I did my own show up in the Crescent City, the Jefferson Cup, that was really fun. Kind of, I'm gonna okay, I'm gonna brag a little about that. I did a cannabis show in 2018 in January, I think it was, where I think I did a couple things first, and I don't think they've been repeated. One is I did the competition. The competition part of the show was between Southern Oregon and Humboldt, which Southern Oregon is one of the rivals Humboldt County as far as quantity and quality. It's an amazing area for cannabis, and they grow a lot. They grow a lot of cannabis in Southern Oregon, and I'm right on the border where I live. At Crescent City is right on the border of Oregon and Humboldt County. So I did a show where it was Humboldt County versus Oregon, and the reason why it's a little unique is technically you I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here, but technically you're not supposed to cross state lines with cannabis, right? I mean, cannabis in Oregon was legal, cannabis in California, but technically you're not allowed to cross the borders state to state with different cannabis from different states. So anyways, I had that competition. No one asked me where all the samples came from. I just didn't ever have to answer that question. So it was kind of chill. We gave away an ounce of gold instead of a plastic trophy as the winner. And it was kind of a really chill, some really nice heavy hitters. And that was a fun show to do, but tons of work, tons and tons of work. It's hard to organize. But again, it was an educational experience dealing with the city and dealing with the board of directors. And this is kind of a conservative town, and getting them to agree that you can have a cannabis event. But now all the events are pretty much canceled anyways, but that's something I definitely would like to do again. But the event was basically professional because you won money and a 2-state event. So pull that off in 2018. That's what I'm still kind of proud of that. But yeah, those shows are interesting things. They're kind of watered down now. But yeah, High Time seems a little more corporate. I've been to a few of them. The Emerald Cup is just so big. It's just, I can't even estimate it, but dabs the size of extra large pizzas, stacked on top of each other. People holding signs, I need Kush. And there's probably, I can't even tell you the number of pounds that are being sold. Display cases literally filled with pounds of cannabis that you could just buy. It dabs everywhere, dabs everywhere. And yeah, actually I went and got booths, very expensive to do that. But Grean Bicycles has booths has been at the Emerald Cup a number of times too. But very cool, just again, to be a part of that and look around and have people ask you questions. Very, very blessed to be in this industry. How did you get into the industry, sir? Since you're asking all the questions, I might ask one.
Well, I've always been into cannabis from a very young age. I've been around it. I was introduced to it. My parents did it, as did many others. I was unfortunately on my own at a very early age, which found myself kind of hustling and a lot. And when I came to kind of straightening up and trying to live a little bit more proper life there. Trying attempt to somewhat weed out some of the riffraff at the time. I decided to cut some corners and start growing. Stop selling as much and start growing. And so I grew for a number of years. Right around 2000 is when I picked up, and then grew just enough for myself there for a number of years. And then once Michigan took it on to where it was legal and you could take patients on, uh, I most certainly went down, got my card, and took on as many patients as I could, and haven't looked back. So, yeah, it's been a fun journey, that's for sure. And
No,
I
I think
find
that's
myself to be very blessed and grateful for all of it. That's and I don't regret any of those years. Those hustle years, man. Uh, you couldn't pay enough for a college course in hustle. You know what I mean? That's some lessons there that carry you through life and save your ass in every situation. I can't think of a situation, any situation in my life, where I can't apply some of that hustle to. So I don't regret any of it.
no, it's a journey that got us where we're at, and yeah, there's some things I definitely regret, but yeah, it is what it's your history, and got your filter that you're looking at through today, and yeah, that's what makes us all individuals, and I think that should be celebrated, not worried about.
It's hard. I'm with you there. I would just actually was talking about this the other night. I was My stepmom is up from Florida and visiting some family that I didn't actually get to meet till later in life. A long story there too, but it's weird because they were always anti-cannabis, and but most of the people at the table knew these days what I'm up to. But there was one new person at the table who I was meeting, and asked, hey, what do you do? And I sat there and I squirmed for a minute. I actually did. So many years of regret, and not necessarily regret, but being shunned, I should say, and not being a little bit ashamed to outright say it. You know what I mean? I squirmed. I squirmed. I was like, I still run my carpentry business, and I'm a caregiver. And the lady across the way says, "Oh yeah, caregiver," and not knowing that for a few minutes later that she's a medical doctor. So she's like, "Oh, are you?" She's naming off all these like caregiver licensing, and I'm like, "No, no." And then I'm like, you know what? I might as well just fucking say it. It's not. I'm ashamed of it anymore, and things are changing. I'm a cannabis medical caregiver, and goddamn, I actually said this. God damn it, I shouldn't even be ashamed of it. So I don't even know why I stammered. And then the room kind of got quiet there for a second, and we were able to. She was actually not one of the doctors that kind of like looked down her nose, at cannabis. She seemed to a little bit. We actually had a nice little conversation about it, but it's still in that phase where it's hard to just go, I'm a cannabis grower and I'm proud of it. And then, like a room full of people, you know what I mean? We still haven't reached that plateau, but I'm still very proud of what I do. But man, your reactions can be very across the board for sure. Still,
No,
we're not
that's
out
one
of
of
the
the
woods yet.
no, that's one of the unique things about this industry is one, it's gone from being considered very negative to now actually more acceptable, and definitely the momentum is towards okay and beneficial even in some areas, and very much accepted, and becoming more and more so. It's also so yeah, there's a swing in attitude changes, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I went through kind of the same things, and now it is what it is. It's very much accepted, but it's also a new industry. From it's always been an underground industry, but it's a new and booming industry with a ton of publicity out there. It's around the world. It's all changing at once, where all of a sudden it went from underground to above ground. There's definitely a lot of growing pains going on with that, but the possibility of making legitimate money is definitely there now, and it's a unique situation where it's a new industry that's blossoming. So that's another fun and tough part of this business is the growing pains going from underground to above ground. It's not an easy transition. It took a lot of people down, but here on the West Coast, I think they definitely overregulated, and the black market's thriving out here. It's doing really well. They overtaxed and overregulated, and I think there'll be some adjustments and balances, but yeah, there's definitely growing pains going through the industry. One of the other here I go. I'm just going to ramble on. One of the and I had a unique position where someone here in town, actually a real interesting guy, he started a program on the West Coast called the Clean Green Program. And this was a lawyer who used to certify dairy farms and vegetable farms, et cetera, with a USDA organic certification. So very, very smart guy. So he decided, he goes, you actually, technically you can't use the word organic with cannabis, because I think organic is a national word, and cannabis up until very recently was considered not a viable plant. So you can never really use and I don't think you can even at this point where you can say you have organic cannabis. Anyways, this guy started a program that was absolutely parallel to the USDA organic program. He called it the Clean Green Program. So he could certify cannabis farms as being clean green, which basically meant they were organic. You just can't use the word organic. And then it's kind of a marketing tool when you're in dispensary saying, hey, I have this clean green certified cannabis. And I guess long story short, I was one of his inspectors, and I had the region of Humboldt and Southern Oregon. So I used to go out, one of my jobs was inspecting cannabis farms, which was, yeah, I know, go figure. But I saw it go from a recreational where the farms were smaller, usually real typically 99 plants or less. And the farmers were so proud, and they were usually really healthy and suntan and very much in shape, and big smiles and bright eyes, and so proud to show you around their farm. And that was for a number of years. And then once it went recreational and the licensing got involved, and the cameras and the fencing and the sign-in sheets, and I'd inspect the same farm, but now they're 5,000 plants or 20,000 plants, and the people are working, they're working every bit as hard as they did before, but now they have taxes, now they have oversight, now they have paperwork, now they have an investor typically that expecting that the investor's on a gold mine, because it costs so much money to set up a farm legally. So I saw that, I had the unique opportunity through that time period, or the change of seeing the industry change from being kind of a gray underground area with the rules weren't quite to this recreational market, where it was kind of like, regulation and taxation. And it gave a lot of those early farmers a real hard time. And some of them persevered, and some of them just said it's not worth it anymore. It's just, and again, the other side of that coin, I want to say is they had a really good run. Not a lot of taxes were, good amounts of money were made. Not a lot of taxes were paid. They had a pretty sweet, they grow, and then they usually go to South America or get a brand new 4-wheel drive truck in the off season. They live pretty good, but it opened up and says, okay, now you can do it legally, but you're paying taxes and there's regulations and there's inspections and it changed the game a lot. And I did get to see that, but I also did get to see a lot of great farming techniques, and that also helped with my education and what a good cannabis farm looks like. And I've seen lots and lots of plants, which is kind of cool. Lots of greenhouses, lots of plants. Huge farms, unbelievably huge farms are out there now. But anyways, you wanted me to talk about myself, and you got what you asked for, but
Be an amazing. Hell yeah, that's what we're here to find out all about you. All the way up to your green bicycles, happy endings, and excuse me, what is the other product that add to the soil? That Sungrown 707, who wanted me to say hello, he's in chat.
Sungrown comes to my
Was
channels.
talking about the other evening. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, Sungrown's actually really. I don't know how he stumbled upon my show, but he comes on. Actually, I learn a lot from Sungrown. Great guy. So if he's out, I can't see the chat or anything, but if you're out there, peace, brother. Hope you're enjoying your evening. Yeah, what I ended up doing is when I started my organic garden center, I thought everyone was like me and they wanted to make their own stuff. So I had I had barrels of back guano and barrels of cottonseed meal and barrels of alfalfa and barrels of neem seed meal. And so I had and it turns out in the organic field, there's not an infinite amount of inputs. Actually, it's probably well less than 50. Probably more than you can get by with 30 things in the organic field. In fact, start looking at labels and you'll see a lot of repeats. But anyways, I had a store that had all these dry ingredients people could mix together. No, it turns out nobody really had an interest in doing that. So I came up with a few different recipes. I had a vegan recipe, I had a carnivore recipe, and then I had an ocean bounty recipe. And I had a unique little thing going on where if they bought a bag of soil from me, I always brew tea, and compost tea is kind of new. I mean, it's ancient, but again, not a lot of people started doing it. So in my shop, I always had tea brewing. And so if they bought a bag of soil, I would fully amend it with a mix. They could pick any mix they want, the carnivore or the vegan or the ocean. And then they can come in and get free tea through their whole grow cycle. So if they buy a bag of soil for $20, and that included the amendments and all the tea. So it was kind of like a one stop. So that was kind of was my gimmick or whatever but it worked really well. And then it kind of weeded down to where the ocean bounty mix, people had the most success with that. So that's what, I hated retail with a passion. I really did. I was stuck in the store. I was, not making a whole lot of money with it. In fact, probably none, but it gave me some hope. So I just started thinking, well, how can I multiply these sales of Ocean Bounty? And I thought, well, if I can get it on other store shelves and then that's another whole rabbit hole. And so I printed out some labels and it was like, I had no idea what I was doing. And started getting other people to try it. And that's in it. Then went through the transition of getting a label and getting it registered with CDFA and getting it on store shelves. And it's not for the faint of heart, and you're going to get knocked down a few times, but if it does work out, the timing is right and you get the right person to try it and they have success, it just kind of bloomed. How about that for a pun? But anyways, how I actually got people to try my product, because what I did is I put my package together, I made a little label on my printer, glued it on the package. I thought it was a paper bag package that I made into a square brick. It's kind of crazy, a lot of work, but I thought I was so proud of my package. I'd take it down to some of the grocery stores in Humboldt County, and didn't really know it. I know a couple of the managers a little bit because I'd buy lights and that kind of thing from them, but I'd go in and drop off some of the package and say, oh no, this is on consignment, don't worry about it. And of course the growing cycle is months long. And people get these free samples all the time. I go back a week later and all excited, who'd you give my samples to? And they said, well, nobody wanted them. So at one point, I don't know where I got the idea. I said, come out to my truck. So one of the managers came out to my truck and I had a jar of my dank, because I could actually have some pretty good dank. And I opened the jar and they went, wow. And I said, I only use my product on this. And they said, are you serious? I said, I only use my product. They said, really? I think I'll try it. So I kind of went a little outside the box because back at that time, you couldn't say marijuana in a grow store. They would ask you to leave someplace. It's kind of a weird deal. Like, come on, give me a break here. You're selling hydroponic equipment for thousands of dollars. They're not growing daisies. But anyways, I tried that, and that actually kind of got the ball rolling for people to actually try it. And of course, it takes years, once you start, because it's minimum 10, 12-week cycle, right? It's before you know if something works. And what's bad too is a lot of people throw a lot of things together. Like they get this is what I've learned of the shows. You give people samples and they'll just add them to whatever, and that's not helpful. That's not the way to do it. So you got to get people just to try it. It's really getting around. It's Ocean Bounty flower mix, and the flower was a mistake too, because it works the entire cycle. So you can amend the soil one time with it. It's like a super soil, and that soil is good for 1 or 2 runs without adding any additional nutrients. I do like that. And then I developed a tea called Happy Endings tea. I don't know about my creativity, gets me in trouble sometimes, but I love that name, by the way. But the Happy Endings tea, I looked into it and I wanted to make something for the roots, because I know it all starts. I always knew if you pull up a plant and had these big, white, healthy, fluffy roots, that's awesome. When you see that, it's a great plant, and it is a great plant. It's common to great plants is a nice, healthy root system. So I started looking at some of the, what about roots and how they work. And so I use some enzymes and some different elements and concoctions to actually make a good root tea. So it is a little bit of a nutrient tea, but so it's a 2-step system. You amend the soil with Ocean Bounty, plant your plants. Don't ever add fertilizer again, but you add the tea every 2, 3, 4, or 5 waterings, maybe only 2 or 3 times during the grow, and that helps break down the natural carbon-based nutrients and feed. It's actually how nature works. We can go into the salt thing a little bit if you want, but that didn't start till after World War II. It was ammonium nitrate, excess ammonium nitrate, which is bomb building material, and it turns out it's just a great source of nitrogen for plants. Are readily available, and actually it's almost a little bit too potent, if you ask me, and it's not good for the environment. So the salt business kind of boomed after World War II, but nature for thousands and thousands of years, I'll get into this now a little bit, is it's a carbon cycle of plants and animals eat plants and animals. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest, where we have these huge redwood forests right on the coast. In fact, just miles from my house, some of the biggest redwood trees in the world. But I was walking through there once, and I just realized it was like the Garden of Eden. I mean, if you ever been through the ferns, the green, the wood, the trees are humongous. It's like a painting, and nobody fertilizes that. So, it started having me start thinking about more deeper of the biology. And, it turns out it's really just a carbon cycle, and the things that fall on the ocean, on the forest floor, the plants and animals that fall on the forest floor feed the forest. And it's really a carbon cycle. And that's the basics of good organic gardening. And subcools, super soils is really just a lot of good carbon-based nutrients that's how nature feeds. That's when we go have a meal, it's plants and animals. And I look at it like that. So I just basically have a wide variety of plants and animals in my mixes, some enzymes, a few salts from nature, like Epsom salts is a natural salt. But that's kind of our philosophy. So we have 2 products, Ocean Bounty and Happy Endings. They're both all natural. I'm kind of a small company, so I don't have it organic certified, because that's kind of tricky with as many ingredients as that I have. But it is. And actually everything except the bat guano you could eat. You could actually buy it at a health food store. So Yeah, it's really kind of simple once you look into it, but how I look at nutrition for plants and animals is it's a carbon cycle, and we eat carbon, which is other living things. And one other thing, I'm going to go on. I'm sorry, got me started, but
Please do.
but okay, a little. When I started looking into it a little bit, there's certain elements. We look at them as NPK, which are the macro elements for plants, right? They're on every in fact, it's a requirement for a fertilizer to have the NPK numbers on the label. That's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But there's a myriad of elements that were required for life, and plants need about 20. I'm just going to rough it, ballpark, and say there's about 20 elements that are required for a plant to live. We're talking nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, molybdenum, iron. And if just one of those elements is not in the plant can't live because it's required for life. They're elements of life. Animals, I think there's 23. And most animals are all the same, except you might get a different metal or something switched out in certain plants or certain species. But typically there's like 20 elements that are required for a plant to live, and 23 elements, say, for an animal to live. They have to have it. You can't have life without having those elements in the living organism. So what I'm getting around to is, people always talk about trace elements and this and that, and they're absolutely important. Those are the elements of life. But if you digest something that used to be alive, say a plant or an animal, by definition, it has the living elements inside of it. So if you have, a bushel of alfalfa, that alfalfa has every element that's required for life. The same thing if it's let's say a fish meal. A fish meal has every element so all the trace elements are already built in carbon-based nutrients, plants and animals. So there's different ratios of different ones. You can look for more phosphorus in some areas or other. But if you're eating things that used to be alive, all the trace elements are kind of accounted for. That's why the salt-based regimes kind of got in a lot of troubles, because they're using these different salts like ammonium nitrate or whatever, and they don't have a wide variety. I hope I'm not boring the shit out of you. But you're yawning on me. You're killing me. You're like my students.
No, my contacts are dry as shit, man.
You're bringing back memories of my students in the front row.
The contact's just dry as shit.
But I kind of lost my train of thought.
Not at all.
But so yeah, the salt-based nutrients, they're missing things like silica and the carbon actually is a huge part of being in the soil. So you never really, if you're like a hydroponic salt-based system, you're never really going to get really healthy, strong plants. And I think that the terpenes and it's not the quality. It's kind of like a tomato grown in chicken poop, or a tomato grown in Miracle Grow. That tomato grown in chicken poop is probably going to look a lot better, smell a lot better, and taste a lot better. And that's, organic food typically does. So yeah, I went through the salt-based fertilizer stuff, but it's and you can get fine results. You can, but it's just, I don't think it's quite as healthy, and it's more expensive, and it's actually, to me, a lot harder to do, pull off. But I've seen some great salt grows. So I won't down them, but if you want a really good quality that's easy to do, it's almost foolproof. Just look at it in terms of building a super soil and watering it, and giving it. And the environment's really important also. The temperature and humidity and airflow, extremely critical. And a lot of things that people leave out too is a curing process, which is, it's really hard to get a good cure on production. Like if you have pounds and pounds and pounds, because it's kind of like a little bit of a boutique thing. So curing it is something that's usually not mentioned in a lot of the growing books, but actually can add quite a bit to your product as far as a little pop, as far as smell and taste, I believe. Boy, I could talk, can't I? My goodness, sir.
I'm appreciating it. I appreciate it,
I
man.
don't
No,
know.
no, no,
I
no.
can't
I'm
see the.
loving
I'm
all.
glad I can't see the chat because I'd probably get I'd probably get uh, dissuaded a little bit. I don't know.
That's where you're wrong. No, 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 no. Well, well, the American one right out the bat. Since you asked, what's Green's Bicycles take on earthworm castings? But yeah, no,
And
there's actually 68 watching right now, and Chad's
well,
loving this.
well,
So,
okay. Worm
uh,
castings, I think, are an awesome amendment. Excuse me. Great for your soil, great for compost teas. I actually would like to have earthworm castings in my mix, except it's very difficult because they're usually quite wet. Anyways, logistically, it's kind of a pain in the butt. But if I ever talk to anybody, there's a number of things I'll say to. I'll go ahead and go add to your. If you're brewing tea, and we can talk about teas too. I love to talk about anaerobic teas and aerobic teas. I like aerobic teas. That's what I'm more familiar with. But what to add to your teas, because basically when you're brewing a tea, it's basically an incubator, right? You want clean, fresh water, and you want a lot of air. You want some sugar in there. Those are critical. That's the incubator part, and then you want to add in microisms. Now, what we do is we typically we want an incubator will actually multiply those microorganisms, the microbecies, the fungus and bacteria and nematodes and et cetera. There's a myriad of things that grow in there. So I'll just use the term microbecies. So what you want to do is multiply those. That's the idea of a tea brewer. And I'm always like, I have a basic mix. It does have mycorrhizae, it does have enzymes. So if you brew my tea right out of the bag, it has a sugar in it. It'll grow just fine, and you'll grow a bunch of stuff if you looked under the microscope. But I always suggest, locally, add some local mycorrhizae. Go out into some healthy soil that's not been pesticided or a bunch of salt fertilizers in it, and even grass. Pick up a lump of grass, pull it from the soil, shake a little bit of the dirt off of it, and then throw that root ball in your tea brewer. Because what that is that's where all those mycorrhizae that's local and natural to your area, that's where they colonize on roots, actually. So you throw that root ball in your tea brewer, and some of those are going to get multiplied. And that's what you want, because those are the things that actually have the symbiotic relationship between the nutrients in raw form and the bacteria and the fungus and the plant roots. It increases the surface area. There's a lot of real interesting things that those microbecies do. That's a symbiotic relationship. So basically, two brewers, you're just taking that microorganisms, a living soil, and you're multiplying the fuck out of it and reintroducing it to the soil. So if you can add some of the things that are local, worm castings is a great thing to add to your tea. Like I said, a root ball is really good, or just a good compost. If you're into composting, whatever you compost, if it's well composted, it's full of those natural local microbeads that help break down the food. That's what's going on in a compost pile. So if you introduce those into an aerated incubator, it's a 2 or 3 day process, depending on whatever, but you're going to actually multiply those. And then when you reintroduce those to the soil, it's just, it really is like, it's one of the most amazing things you can do to your plant, any plant, house plants, grass, anything, just introducing that living power punch back into the soil really does wonders. Actually, I hear it quite often, and I've seen it myself, is if you brew a good compost tea and you water a plant, you will actually see the difference within a day or so, where you actually, most things you don't know if there's a change or not. But with the tea, you can actually see the plant. It usually sticks its leaves. It just looks better, I don't, but tea is one of those things that's really fast acting, and you can play around with them. You can add nutrients. You can just do a basic fungal tea or a worm tea. Lots of, just the tip of the iceberg on some of the possibilities of boosting that living soil and making it more and more efficient and active. So I'm a big advocate of teas, and that's kind of I made a real simple, easy tea where it's a powdered mix. I like everything in powder. It's just easier to ship. You don't have to put acid in it to stabilize it or anything like that, which a lot of liquid organics have. Kind of a dirty little secret. They pH the bottles down pretty low, so to kill the bacteria, to keep it from exploding or getting sour, or the bottles blowing up. So even though the nutrients are in the liquid organics, a lot of that bacteria and stuff has been neutralized or killed, so it has a longer shelf life. So that's another reason I like dry stuff. So I do have a dry tea mix that you just really mix in water. You can even top dress it, but if you really want that extra boost, you make a little incubator, which is basically simple as a 5-gallon bucket, a little air stone, and an air pump. Throw some sugar in there, put some clean water in there. Non-chlorinated works best, but you can get away with some chlorinated water. You'll still brew microbeces. And I strongly suggest, if you haven't tried compost teas, to try them, because they will kick up your level of gardening in almost any garden. So big advocate of compost teas. My goodness, I can talk a lot.
Yeah, they're loving it. They're loving it. I wish you could see chat. There was one that cat that just said, he's like, I'm leaving to tend in the garden, but I'm still listening. Please continue to preach, Professor.
Well, thank you.
One other guy. Now, as soon as you said that last time, light up again. Tim says, "Ain't nobody throwing nothing at the chalkboard. Please keep going."
Okay. Well, thank you. You guys don't get me started.
I have a.
Yes.
Yes, we're gonna get you started because we want to learn some stuff. For one, I want to tell you I appreciate you about your comments of the root zone there. For years, that's been my measurement of my success as well. Unless that's actually maxed out in my container, actually just root bound, I can do better up top. So that's after every harvest, when I take that, if I'm not reusing that soil, when I take it outside and flip it out, chuck it on the ground, that's the first thing I'm doing is examining that root ball to see what can be done there. Because whatever I can fix there is going to pay me probably tenfold up top. So I do appreciate you throwing that out.
No, it all starts in the roots.
I'm curious to know. I run a chunky cocoa. I have run soil at certain points, but currently I'm in cocoa. I like my cocoa. I'm getting ready to mess with, some organics. Miley's Garden sent me over some earth boxes here, and I'm starting down the rabbit hole. But I'm curious, can I take your Ocean Bounty and teas and utilize that in my chunky cocoa?
Absolutely, it's done all the time. People use the ocean in a lot of different ways, and this is something too that's interesting about cannabis is and I learned this. I don't know if I've learned it the hard way, but a lot of things work. So I learned a long time ago to say, no, you can't do this or that won't work, because I'll be damned every time I've done that, somebody says, oh yeah, well it worked for me. So there's a wide things that absolutely work. And that's good and bad in the industry. Old timers tend not to want to change a little bit. They tend to want to, like, my deal works, and so many do. So that's kind of cool in a way. Is that you can always throw your own little touch in there. Some people, whatever it is, and you'll be fine. It's not an exact science where you have to have an exact formula, especially with organics, especially with carbon based, because I'm going to start again. Sorry, but when I started looking into, like, I'm a bit of a chemistry geek or whatever, a scientist, and used to teach chemistry. But so when I started looking to make my tea, I was thinking, because there's a lot of this talk of, oh, plants love molasses. I feed my plants molasses. They love molasses. And in my mind, I'm thinking, now I don't know. I hear it a lot, and it's not. It's so must be something to it. But I'm thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be a really long sugar molecule, and how does that actually get in the root? So I started doing some research on like, well, how does phosphorus go in a root, or how does nitrogen go into a root, or potassium or calcium or magnesium? What's the actual, because when you look at a root, it looks solid, right? I mean, it's like, well, what's the mechanism? I'm going to get a little deep, sorry, but in nature, things do not move unless they're pushed or pulled. That's where forces come in, right? So I'm going a little off topic. So forces are pushes and pulls, and that's how things go in, inside and out of a root, is either about push or pull. Well, what's most common in nature is the electromagnetic push or pull, like between plus and minus charges, right? So in a salt base, when you mix a salt in water, it kind of forms two. The water dissolves it, and it kind of makes a positive particle and a negative particle, and they're equal, so it's a neutral solution, but they're arranged so that they kind of separate into two different charges, or they become a charged little particle, let's say. So that's how salt-based particles, they're kind of like, it's that plus and minus is a push and pull, plus and pluses push away from each other, etc. So salt-based fertilizers are naturally like little magnets. So when they're in solution in water, they're kind of like, I analogous to like an IV in the hospital. It's kind of forced into the plant. That's why you got to be really careful with pH. You got to be really careful with concentration when super critical when you're dealing with salt-based fertilizers, because they're being pushed into the plant by the charge on the salt. Now in nature, it's the bacteria and the funguses that actually charge the particle and do an interchange with the plant root. There's a symbiotic relationship. And it turned, going back to where I started from, well, how does a plant, if it wants phosphorus, how does a plant absorb phosphorus? Well, from what I've read is that there's little proteins on the root, and they rotate in and out. So a protein that wants to grab phosphorus is different than a protein that wants nitrogen. So when a plant needs phosphorus or wants some phosphorus, that little protein molecule rotates out, and it'll grab some phosphorus, a phosphate in liquid form if it's near the root, and it'll rotate back into the plant. So it's kind of like a little rotator. So what I'm getting around to is plants take what they need when they need it. So unless with the salt thing, you're forcing it into the plant. You're trying to figure out when it needs it and how much it needs it, and it's there is great success, so I don't want to knock it too much. But it's kind of the idea of building a super soil. If you add a bunch of good solid nutrients in your soil, you don't really harm the plant if it's carbon based, because they take those as they need it. It's like a flowering fruiting plant, like say an apple tree or a cherry tree. When it starts to fruit, starts to flower, they want phosphorus. Well, that tree can't go to another section of the yard and grab phosphorus. It has to take it when it needs it. So I truly believe that if you're growing the organic, natural way, if you just, you have a very well-stocked soil full of nutrients, you'll get the plant will absorb them. And I don't even know where I started on this little tangent. This is what I do sometimes, so I apologize. But yeah, anyways, the proteins rotate in and out, and they grab the nutrients that they need when they need them. And that's kind of, I believe, how nature, and I still think they're figuring it out. They haven't, there's some real interesting, Rutgers University has some real interesting studies about how the roots and the symbiotic relationship between the mycorrhizae system and the plant roots. And it's pretty complicated. It's like, it's like the complexity of brewing a compost tea is mind-boggling if you thought of all the billions of chemical reactions that are going on. And another thing, I'm branching off. I feel myself. But even a compost tea, when you brew a compost tea and you add natural elements, the NPK nature changes throughout time, because there's just billions of chemical reactions going on in that tea. And as they happen, the different elements come out in different concentrations. For example, like I use fishbone meal as my phosphorus source, really, really good phosphorus, natural phosphorus source. And when you're brewing a tea, and I've had these tests done, which really fascinated me, is that the phosphorus, after 12 hours, if you're looking at concentrations, and I did, it doesn't really start releasing until say 24 hours, and then the phosphorus starts because it's from bone meal. And bone meal is a little bit, it's a harder substance. It's not going to break down as fast as say alfalfa meal or fish meal. So teas change their throughout time, and it's hard to figure out unless you're a chemist and you can test it all the time. So there's a little bit of an art and intuition involved with brewing teas, but they change their character throughout time due to those chemical reactions that are going on constantly, but in the biological process. So teas are very interesting. It kind of makes organic kind of, in a way, it's very complex, but in a way, it's very easy. And plants and animals eat plants and animals. That's the best way for me to put it. And I lost my train of thought. Bam.
I'll start you in another direction then.
Okay, please.
Friend to the show, Bingus would like to know how can he utilize. He would like to know how can he runs in straight perlite. Can he utilize teas in that type of system?
Yeah, absolutely. Teas working now. If you're working like a hydroponic system, or if you're using pumps at all, what happens with teas is in all kind of organic materials, when you use them as fertilizer, they build up like a biofilm. So I'm not sure if you're using hydroponics for your but actually it might not be real conducive in a sense that you're going to start getting slime and buildup in your perlite. I imagine that I've never heard of anybody growing directly, unless that's, I guess, a pure hydroponic system growing in pure perlite. But it's, I think they're trying to figure out hydroponics and organic. I think you kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of out of the loop on that one, but the problem with organics is you're going to get biofilms that build up in your pumps and they're kind of a pain in the butt. I don't know if that helped you or not. Let's
I
say. I don't know.
I can't remember exactly what his watering system is, but a lot of people I can't say a lot. I know of quite a few people that do grow in straight perlite just because of the aeration there and the steady drip of nutrients. It's very explosive growth. Kind of the reason why I mean, you talk about when you were talking about water in there, I was very on point with a lot. Water is, pushed or pulled in there through hydrostatic pressure there. And that's one of the reasons I like this chunky cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
I have the buffer zone there, and I have it doesn't saturate itself for too long of a period. So basically every day, and I could even lessen the amount in water twice a day and push more oxygen through the root zone to kind of keep things healthy down that way. But that's one of the reasons why I do it is that keep that such a more aerated root zone, a heavy aerated root zone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if that works, that's great. I always I'm lazy, and I've gone through the chemistry experiments, the house and garden regimes, and all of them. I think I've tried at one time or another. But and another thing in this industry too, 20%, you can do exactly the same. Any experienced grower will probably tell you this. You can do, excuse me, getting old. You can do the thing, say you have your system you worked on for years, and you could grow from one grow to the next, and you could have a 10 or 20 or 30, even a 40% difference in yield and quality, just in doing almost everything the same. So it's real easy to get caught up and say, oh, well, or somebody puts, this gives you 20% more or whatever. Just natural variations can give you that. And I'm old, I'm not trying to hide that. So I do this, if I can do two things and one's more complicated than the other, And the less complicated, there's no real difference that I can notice between the two. I pare it down and go the less complicated. And I think there's some kind of keep it simple, stupid. I don't mean to say that, but there's some logic to that. Is simple. If you can eliminate one step and you get the same results, that's great. Or eliminate one cost or one movement, you get a little bit ahead of the game. But like I said, there's so many different methods that work well, and I've seen it. Some things have blown me away about what people pull off, and that's kind of the beauty about this plant. Is that can I go off on another little tangent that I found to be kind of fascinating? If you don't mind, if you'll indulge me.
Please, please.
Okay. Like I said, I like a little bit of chemistry, so I gave some talks on terpenes, right? And terpenes became kind of a buzzword a few years back about the terpene profile. Now they measure them, and people are more familiar with the names like linalool or pinene, and there's a plethora of terpenes that cannabis makes, as well as other plants make the exact same terpenes, right? And so I started like investigating, okay, what are terpenes, and how are they made? And to me, what it ended up being an extremely fascinating topic. And so bear with me here. But so I look at a terpene molecule, and typically they have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. That's it. There's three elements: carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. I think some of the terpenes might have an oxygen. I'm not sure. But the three main organic building blocks of terpenes are carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen. So I started, at a very basic level. So there's three elements that make up a terpene, right? So I started looking, well, where do those come from? Well, we've all heard of photosynthesis, right? So the very building block of actually all life forms on Earth starts at photosynthesis, where what you do is you have a molecule inside a leaf, chlorophyll. It takes sunlight, it takes CO2, and it takes water, and it makes oxygen and a sugar molecule, right? That's basically a dumbed down version of the photosynthesis. Water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. And there's a molecule inside the leaf that produces a sugar molecule and an oxygen molecule. That's it. It's really that simple. Okay, so what happens there? Well, that sugar molecule is kind of the beginning of it all. What's a sugar molecule? It's carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. So it's three basic building blocks. So what happens? A plant is like, I look at it as like a factory, right? In the machinery of the factory are the biomolecules like chlorophyll. Another one's ADP, where it's a molecule that transfers energy between different cells and whatever. So that's kind of the machinery of the factory. And the inputs to the factory are CO2 and water. Those are the inputs in sunlight, right? Those are the inputs to the factory. The biomachinery of the plant, they're the ones who take those inputs. And the first thing they do is they rearrange them a little bit. And once you have 5 carbons and it's rearranged and folded, that's a terpene. And then those get rotated along down the road, and some more sugar is added, and the terpene gets a little bigger, and then it gets to be 10 carbon atoms. And they're always in units of 5, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why. So then that's a less volatile terpene because it's a little heavier. And then later on down the line, that carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen gets rearranged and folded into all kinds of things. But one of them is terpenes, and the terpenes get heavier. And then you get a 15 carbon terpene, which is a real heavy. And then after that, I think after 20, they're not terpenes anymore. But when you look at THC, CBD, which are the terpenes, the THC and the CBDs are the things that we enjoy from cannabis. Those are what attract us to it typically, those experiences. There are more, and they're learning about more all the time, but those are basically Are kind of following what I'm saying? And if you look at the
Yeah, can
molecule,
I just interject real quick? Because I
yes.
want to, because you'll be able to run with it a lot further after this. I was actually listening to this quantum biology thing the other day in relation to terpenes. And they were talking about the five molecule chain there and how each terpene is basically like a puzzle piece almost that, hits our nose and is unlocked in each receptor in our nose. Basically, there's a receptor for each terpene, and that terpene is a key. And they were saying that how different terpenes, but the same terpenes, could hit us and affect us differently was the the same key, if you will, just a slightly different molecule. So they were saying like so in different phenols could have a heavier carbon chain uh, molecule in that same key, which affected differently than, say, one that was a little bit lighter and still hit the key for us, and brought two night and day side effects from the same terpene. What are your thoughts? Can that mix into what you're telling me?
No, absolutely. In fact, actually, at a real fundamental level, um, biology and life is geometry based. It's absolutely geometry based. As far as keys fitting in locks, that's absolutely true. And I think there's still, and there's some research and some's anecdotal and whatever, but terpenes, what they call, they have the entourage effect. They interact with the THC and the CBDs in various ways to make your experiences differently. Absolutely. And in drug chemistry, just talking about it is this, yeah, to your point. There's molecules called isomers which have the exact same makeup except they're mirror images of each other, and they affect us chemically completely different just because they have a mirror image of each other. There's different, but anyways, that's absolutely true. To me, biology at a real fundamental level, it's all about geometry, and fascinating. And I wish I knew a whole lot more about that. But going back to those building blocks of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, or carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is what they're made up of. Nitrogen comes in there sometimes. And then what happens, those terpenes, is they get moved and folded and added to by sugars and etc. And they end up being, well, it turns out the molecule of THC is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Or yeah, I'll get a little mixed up. Let's say THC is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Those three elements, that's it. There's nothing else in THC. CBD is exactly the same thing. In fact, CBD and THC have the exact same numbers of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. It's just they're shaped different. They have a different shape, they have a different fold, they have a different geometry. So they affect us a lot differently. But as far as molecular weight and what they're made of, they have the same exact building blocks, except they're just folded differently. And that's what the plant machinery does. The proteins and the genetics, they're the ones that regulate, how those protein or how those sugars get folded. But my big point here is that once I realized that, okay, what do we enjoy from cannabis? Well, terpenes, of course, the smells, the taste, the flavors, the entourage effect that they have, and of course the THC and the CBD. Those are absolutely, some of the things that we enjoy about cannabis. Now, if you look at those, there's only three elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, right? And then you think, well, where's NPK come in? There's no NPK in THC. There's no magnesium in THC. There's none of that. I mean, there's no calcium in THC. There's no calcium in terpenes. So these things that we're so worried about getting, it's like they don't have anything to do with the end product. They're not in the end product. The only thing that's in the end product are things that come from the atmosphere. Now, this is trippy, but it's very true. The atmosphere gives us the inputs to create the molecules that we desire. The plant uses machinery to convert the atmosphere, which is really water and carbon dioxide, into the things that we like. So the things that come from the soil are not in what we enjoy. It's the things that come that the plant absorbs from the atmosphere are actually the important part. That's why your environment is so important. Having nice airflow under the leaves and a good humidity so that the plant can actually transpire and drink real well. And a rich CO2 environment absolutely play a huge role in the cycle effect of the plant because, and I don't know if you've ever thought about it like that before, but none of that stuff in fertilizer bottles, and I sell fertilizer, so it seems a little crazy I'm saying this, they're not the end product. They're not the things that we enjoy. Those come from the atmosphere. What the nutrients do is they build a healthy factory. And that's what we want is we want a healthy factory, let it go into a great environment, and then let the genetics take over and do what they do. But I never really looked at it that way. That the things we absolutely enjoy come from the atmosphere, not the ground. Now, I don't know if you ever thought about it, but it's absolutely true. Crazy? Am I crazy? Yes.
I don't think you're crazy.
Oh, I
Not at
am a
all.
little. I am, but that's
I'm
okay.
loving it.
Oh, look at
No.
Sungrove's texting me saying doing a good job. Thank you, Sungrove, if you're listening. But anyways, no, those things.
Oh
I
yeah,
do.
you've gotten a lot of compliments.
Well, thank you. Those are the things I love to think about. I love to think a lot about energy and think crazy things like that. If you ever want to go into a rabbit hole and talk about currency or like other worldly things, I'm dying to someone to listen to some of that crazy talk. But no, plants are really interesting and they're fascinating, and it's just a different way of looking at them when you look at them as well. Here, I want to make a really healthy factory, but I have to worry about what's real important to me is airflow, because you know how a plant drinks a water molecule. Well, I'll tell you, it's not a trick question. Is that when a water molecule leaves the bottom of a leaf in a stomata, that's the trigger to pull one in from the ground. So that it's like it's a relationship. So that one doesn't go in from the ground until one is pulled from the leaf. So that's why humidity is really, if it's really humid, there's a lot of water in the air. So that water molecule doesn't really want to leave the bottom of the leaf. It's kind of being pushed. It's not being, it's not being pulled out as readily. So if you have a nice dry air blowing under your leaves, your plants will drink hard. They'll drink fast and grow fast. And that's real important. Is you want that, you want to start, the process begins with the evaporation of a water molecule from under a leaf. That triggers the plant to drink a water molecule to replace it. And so once you kind of have a little bit of understanding of that, you can say, okay, that's why you put fans in a room. And a lot of people point them down and they said, no, they should be underneath, point them up. So there's a lot of good airflow underneath the leaves. It's real important. And you'll see your plants will just drink a lot faster that way. And but then again, you're creating much more humidity in the room. It's kind of a vicious cycle. So you gotta, when you do indoors, especially, you got to mitigate that with dehumidifiers. Especially during the night cycle, that happens a lot. But the good stuff comes from the environment. So you definitely want a good, I like a 50% or so humidity. I'm big on low temperature growing, and one of the reasons of that is I can't shut the fuck up, but I'm just going to keep going. Is that terpenes usually in a plant they have a purpose. One is usually to repel a predator, an insect, or an animal, or sometimes it's to attract a predator, an insect, or an animal. So that's kind of the reasons that terpenes exist, and they're volatile under heat. So typically terpenes are released during the day when the sun is shining, and the warmth releases them from the bud. So if you're in a really hot growing area, those terpenes are being constantly released. If you're in a cooler environment, I like 70s, believe it or not. I'm a big 70s grower, not 1970s, but 70-degree Fahrenheit region. You tend to hold in a lot more of those, and you get a lot more stanky. And if you're in a business, sticky and stinky are always good for sales. So it's always a good sign if you can get good stinky weed. Another thing is I believe plants need a little bit of stress to produce resin. So if I err, I err on the side of underwatering definitely not overwatering. I like to get the soil pretty dry. I don't like to see the plants droop, but I like to get, and it's, again, you got to pay attention. You got to check your plants all the time. You got to lift them. You got to kind of figure out when they need to water. But I like to let them go to that very edge where they want water, and then you give them water. But I think that produces resins a little bit more. Um, in fact, going back to the topic of why we like cannabis, because of the terpenes and the THC and the CBDs, et cetera, the psychoactive molecules. Well, all the research I've done, it turns out, whether it's, let's say it's tobacco and nicotine, or it's opium and whatever heroin, whatever that molecule is, DMT, all the psychedelics. If you look at those, there's 3 molecules in all of those: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Sometimes there's a nitrogen kicked in, like nicotine and opium or heroin has nitrogen. But if you look at those molecules that are psychoactive that plants make us, they're only 3 or 4 elements, and they all come from the air. So it's a common theme that psychoactive molecules, they all come from the atmosphere, which to me is just fascinating. And there's something there. I'm not real sure what it is, but the atmosphere provides us all the materials to make every psychoactive drug that's known. Isn't that kind of crazy? I don't know.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But that's what the plants that produce psychoactive things are all kind of the same thing. They're a factory that takes the carbon dioxide and water and turns it into a psychoactive element that humans tend to love, and we get addicted to them. And we have a symbiotic relationship with a lot of those plants. Caffeine is another one, the same thing. If you look at a caffeine molecule, it's going to be carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and I think some nitrogen, just rearranged differently. And that, to me, that's fascinating. I don't know. How long, man, I've talked almost 2 hours, dude.
Oh man, I don't. You've obviously haven't seen one of the spotlights. This is what it's about, honestly. This is what we prefer. They listen to me. I did, well, it wasn't bad scheduling. I just didn't schedule a lot last week. They heard my ass ramble all last week. They love the information coming out of your mouth tonight. Please ramble on. Okay, if you get off, they got to listen to me ramble on.
I've just about rambled on about everything I know, so you got a lot out of me. But I like talking. No, but the whole thing.
Skunky Buds, right? Skunky Buds wants to know why you spell it with an E or an A. Why do you spell it? Green with an A.
Thank you for asking. In fact, most of the businesses that write me checks don't even see that, and my bank's okay with that. It comes back GREEN. I wish I had a good answer, but here's the one I'm going with: is that the Beatles did it, and I know I'm not trying to put myself with the Beatles. They spelled their name BEAT instead of BEET. Get it? I mean, I don't even know. That's the best thing I can come up with. But I guess it's good when they ask, but what the fuck does it have to do with fertilizer? Nothing. But Grean Bicycles does make your plants pedal faster. How about that? Bam.
There you go.
Don't have a good answer for that, man. Sir.
So, how exactly do you suggest to use your teas? And I want to go revert one more back time to the cocoa and the ocean bounty there. Is that something still that I can apply one time? Because somebody else asked that in chat too. I know you already kind of covered this, but they were asking, basically you can use it as a dry amendment just like you would in your soil. And then can I still get the 2 runs out of it before I actually have to re-amend to it? Or because I'm in a stripped down cocoa, should I re-amend one more time between runs?
See, now that's the good. There's good and bad news with that one. One is cocoa. I don't have a lot of experience, so I can't tell you. I am working with some greenhouses that are close by that because what I'm trying to figure out is how do you re-amend it? Once you use it one time, what's the best way to re-amend it? The good news for me is, like I said earlier, there's a big window of things that work, and especially organics. That window is really wide. Like when they talk about concentrations, I've actually grown a plant in pure Ocean Bounty with no soil, just as a, I always like to max things out. It's like, because will it burn the plant? What will sticking a clone into pure Ocean Bounty fertilizer? What will it do? Well, it turns out it won't kill the plant, but it's not going to grow well for the exact reasons that you talked about earlier, is that it's like a mud. There's no way for that soil to get aerated. So what happens is the roots don't develop very well at all because there's no oxygen getting, not a lot, only that comes down through the water. So the plant will actually live and survive and grow a little bit. It won't burn, but it's just that combination of the aeration of the roots doesn't happen when it's in a pure kind of like a muddy fertilizer mix. So with cocoa, what I would do is I would mix it with in getting back to your point, like this, for instance, at this big greenhouse that I'm working with, we do a bed with a full amended Ocean Bounty, and they use tea also. Well, first they have the soil tested at a soil testing facility when it's clean and fresh. We add the Ocean Bounty. They test it again. We go through a run. We send it to the lab again and test. And it turns out when they get the test back after we add the Ocean Bounty the first time before anything's grown, the numbers come back excess. And again, that doesn't bother me. That's kind of the idea of a super soil. It turns out after the second run, after the first run's over and they resend the soil back where it's already had a full cycle through it, comes back excess. Now there'll be a few of the elements that aren't quite as large, so we're trying to figure out, well, what's a good amendment. The good news part is, like, you can re-amend it if you want it full strength, and you're not going to see a real difference because, like I said, if you just have a rich soil, the plant takes when it needs it. It's not like a salt where it's being pushed into the plant. So you can have excess and you're going to be okay, but you do want the other things like the aeration elements and other living things in the soil too. So what I would suggest with you is I would amend it full strength, which I usually I do about what's about 1.5 cubic feet to 2 pounds, which seems like a lot, but it works just fine. Put 2 pounds in 1.5 cubic feet, amend it. I've also used tea full strength every single watering from the time it's a clone until it's finished. That's fine. It won't kill anything. Things are a little too dark green. So personally, I'm a little lazy. I like to, how I do things, and then I would do it with cocoa, is I'd mix it up. Again, there's windows really wide what works. I'd put my recommended, what seems to work, 2 pounds per 1.5 to 2 cubic feet of soil. Mix it up real well, put your plants in. And I always like to water with the tea for every transplant, because what you're doing is you're introducing that juiced up, mycorrhizae system. That's like it's a living nutrient. So I always like to add that living nutrient on every transplant. And then probably I water with water 3 or 4 times, and then maybe a tea and again, waterings aren't always, when I transplant into, say, a 7-gallon bucket or a 10-gallon bucket container from, an earlier size, I'll water it with tea, and I might not water for a week. I really, I wait until it's dry. And sometimes when that plant's in a big container with not a lot of roots in the plant, that water stays there a long time. So again, I might water once a week at the very beginning stages, once every 4 days, and then I'll add tea every 2 or 3, 4 waterings. I like to get in there at least 2 or 3 times during the cycle, but you can just use. I had great, I have great success just using pure water in the Ocean Bounty, but I think the teas give it an extra boost, and it gives them a little bit healthier root system and a healthier plant. I use silica in a natural form, which I think is extremely important for it makes a rough outer, the outer, so that prevents a lot of diseases in itself if you have a thicker skin on the plant, on the stalks and the stems, and I think silica can provide that. So I have a nice form of silica in my tea that hopefully.
So is that in the Ocean Bounty?
I don't have any
Is there
real.
silica sources in the ocean boundary?
Well, like I said earlier, silica is one of the elements of life. So anything that used to be alive will have some silica in it. It'll probably be more trace elements, but what I use for a silica source, and I'm completely wrong about if even if it works, it's pure conjecture on my part. Is in the tea I use, it's a combination of two things in the agitation process of the tea brewing itself. That's why I don't like using tea bags. But diatomaceous earth, which is SiO2, which is silicon oxygen, real nice, and it's got a lot of surface area. Those little molecules of diatomaceous earth, which is I guess it's an old fossil from seashells or whatever, but it's got a lot of surface area. So that has a number of that surface area has a lot of opportunity for reaction. And it also has an opportunity for being a home for little microorganisms. Everything in nature needs a place to live, food and water. So again, sometimes I'll add hay or a little bit of hay into my compost tea because they need a substrate to actually grow on typically. So diatomaceous earth, SiO2 it's a little tiny shell, but there's a lot of surface area to it, and it could be a source of silica when it combines with humic acid, which if you start looking at labels, you'll start seeing that humic acid is ubiquitous, and it's almost it's on 80% of the good organic or good nutrients out there have humic acid, and for a number of good reasons. I think there's a lot that I don't understand, but I believe that the agitation process between humic acid and the SiO2 creates a form of acid called salicylic acid, which is the form and that how plants normally get silica is from sand in the soil. If there's sand, there's silica in the sand, right? So there's a little bit of dissolving of the sand and it creates an acid called salicylic acid. And that's the natural form of silica that gets readily absorbed into plants. So in my mind, it could be wrong, in the tea brewing process, we, and it's hard to measure, so I couldn't get lab tests done on this, but there's a form of, salicylic acid that is the silica source, and it's in my tea only. It's not in my ocean bounty, but there is silica in the ocean bounty, but just not in high concentrations. I don't know, is that acceptable?
Yeah, that answers the question. Yes, it does. Oh yeah, I'm actually thinking about like you said, wouldn't want to add it to a system, but I would be interested in checking it out in my cocoa there. I mean, I, when I when I telling you my cocoa chunk, it's actually chips. I mean, it's airy. I mean,
No, I've seen some interesting things with aeroponics where they're blowing a lot of air on the roots, and oh yeah, that's like almost hydroponic style then.
yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to see when you pull out the roots when you harvest sometime what it looks like.
Right on. I'll take you some shots next time I pull one out.
Let me see it.
Actually,
Look,
I got
no,
one over there tomorrow that I dump. I'll send you some shots.
and I'll be more than happy to get you a little test. I'm always big on side by sides, and one thing, and I touched on this a little bit earlier. One thing my science background has helped with is, and it takes a lot of, when you're fucking around with stuff, a lot of discipline to not change a lot of variables. Like I said earlier, a lot of people will get samples and just throw it in with the mix and everything else. But if you can have some discipline and do side by sides where you only change one thing, or you don't change, you keep it, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to throw this in there and this in there. As soon as you put in two things, you don't know anymore. So if you just change one thing, if possible, and it's not foolproof, but it does help you streamline the process of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So I would love for you to do a side by side, and like I said, I'll walk you through just basically amending the cocoa. I don't know if you brew teas, but you should. If you don't, I'm just going to I'll be stern with you, young man. But definitely get into brewing some tea.
I don't.
You should. You really. It seems a little complicated at first because there's a little bit of equipment. I think there might be you could probably get away. You don't want a little air pump either, by the way. The more air, the better. Don't use a fish aquarium pump. You can get a garden pump for roughly 40, 50, 60 bucks
Oh no, I've got a big pump.
yeah. So, and you want a nice clean air stone. Sun grown is pushing me to, and I need to do it. I just got to get around to it. It's using a Venturi pump system to aerate the water. Um, I want to try that, but right now I just use a pretty good sized air pump, and I like clean air stones. I only use them 1 or 2 times because they fill up with biofilm and the bubble character changes. I think the bubble size has something to do with, how fast and how vigorous it grows. So those 2 things, once you have
You
those,
know,
you're good.
I was listening to Just Lowenfels a while back ago, and him talking about his cloning methods. I guess this is a good time to plug him. He will be on November 3rd.
Good for you
on the show. So
actually, Green Bicycles sponsored his last series of books.
Sorry. Oh hell yeah! Nice. I have to mention you when I have him by.
Tell him to come on my show. I'd love to hear from him.
Oh.
I'll do some competition
so when
for
I
the
was
talent.
Listening to him,
yes,
we were listening to him about cloners, and what caught my ear was he was pretty much talking about the oxycloner or a similar setup that I run, which is almost a DWC. I mean, when you buy it in the box, it comes with the undercurrent pump, and with the option of putting air and air stones in there. But it always seemed like a bit much to do both. So I've actually ran them side by side with just an undercurrent, and then one next to it with air stones. And the air stones always kind of beat the undercurrent every time without any air in there, just spinning it around, just keeping it moved. And then after I listened to Lowenfeld's talk, he was talking about, again, I think he may even been references brewing teas in this, that to get rid of the stone, invited too much surface area for bacteria and shit to grow on, the porous, it being so porous, just get rid of it. And I thought, I hated the air stones anyway, so I thought I'm gonna give it a shot. And so what I did in my oxycloner is I ran the airlines in kitty corner right next to the clones, and then it kind of bubbled up into the center. And I did that anyway. So the next time I ran one with and without. And you would think, because everything we've been taught about, the air stones pushing more oxygen into the water, that the stones would have won this little round. But every time, hands down, the cloner without the stones, in the same spots, just bubbling up in the center, bigger bubbles, wins every time. Okay, every time, if you can believe that. So I've gotten rid of my stones altogether.
I did too, young man. I lost my stones years ago, but that's another story. But no, I like how you do side by sides, and when you can do that, you can weed out a lot of bullshit. And again, if you have your 2 things and they worked exactly the same, one with stones and one without stones, shit, that to me is a no-brainer. You don't use the stones because they're an extra expense or an extra thing that gets bacteria on them. And that's what I was talking about. Things like to grow on a surface. That's why I like to introduce other surfaces. That's why diatomaceous earth or straws, hay straws, or anything that things the bacteria loves to grab onto a surface. So I definitely like just have some kind of substrates and floating around the tea that allows that to happen. But yeah, no, that's excellent. That's great. And again, so many things work. In my experience, it seems to be the tea didn't brew as vigorously if I left the air stones in there and they got more and more biofilm and more clogged, and the air bubbles took on a different kind of character. And so could be superstitious, it could be whatever, but I just use the air stones 2 or 3 times, toss them, put in some new ones, and I have success. Like I said, I'd like to try that Venturi method that eliminates the air stones, which eliminates the step, eliminates buying something, and I'm hopefully in the near future I'm going to do some work with that. Thank you, Sungrown 707. But yeah, we're going to work on that. But so many different things working. Jeff Lowenfeld is a great source. Elaine Ingram. There's tons of good information out there about, and he's one of the gurus of a living soil. Very knowledgeable, and that's a good coup that you got him on your show. That's cool. I'll try to tune in for that one.
Shoot, Smiley's got Joshua Stansfield on tomorrow night.
I don't know who that is.
Tomorrow night's my night off.
Oh, okay.
He's an organic living soils guy.
Okay.
Supposed to be very, very, very credible. I'm looking forward to hearing everything he's got going tomorrow. But yeah, trying to bring some good stuff here. Genetic Memory Farms wanted me to ask you, did you mean silica acid when you were talking about diatomaceous earth and humic acid?
There's what's in willow bark that helps cloning is salicylic acid, which is salicylic. I'm sorry, I get these messed up, and I'll probably screw this up. So I'm gonna take complete responsibility. But salicylic acid is kind of what's in aspirin, and they talk about putting, they used to put aspirin in a vase for flowers, and there's something to that. That acid is beneficial for like root development or whatever. But I'm talking about salicylic acid, which is spelled like silicon acid, basically. So it's an acid with a silicon in it, and that's kind of and you can actually buy that. There are some products out there that can, you don't want to use potassium silicate. That's a nasty liquid molecule that has to be I don't know if you ever measured the pH of a potassium silicate nutrient. It's going to be like 9 or 10. Otherwise, it'll turn into a polymer, which is really different than all the other. Usually things are pH to a lower number. So it's really, I'm not big on potassium silicate, but if you can find products out there, and there are, that have salicylic acid, spell it, and probably pronouncing it wrong. I can't spell it, but that's the nature's form of silica, and it's very, very beneficial for healthy plants. It prevents a lot of problems. A lot of diseases and pests. Don't. That's why sometimes indoor gardens, they can get infested with mites. They can get infested with powdery mildew, where they just take over the room, where you don't nearly see that outside as much when you're growing in soil. That's my take on it. But anyways, I hope that helped them. But it's salicylic acid, I believe. Anyhow, bam. Thank you for the question, sir. Or ma'am. There's a lot of. Have you noticed this?
It's a lot Joshua.
This is a male, which I hate to see. It's male dominated. These podcasts, and it's a shame in a way. It's a shame in a way because I think and maybe I'm just in the wrong crowd, but it seems to me that the growing female cannabis plants would be very natural for women, and I think I would like to see more women growers, because they definitely enjoy cannabis as much as men, I believe, in my experience, anyways.
They're starting to come out. For sure. There's at least, I would say, on average, 5 that hang out, in the crowd, per night that hang out around the show. And I would think that we're 219 tonight, episode 219. Out of that, I think I've had probably 30 women growers on. So they're coming up in numbers, and that I ain't even scratching the surface. That's just the ones that actually have said yes. Been nice enough to say yes to come on the show.
No,
So
that's awesome.
they're actually they've seen the way.
No, that's great. Yeah, we have
They've
some.
seen the way. That's for sure.
Humboldt County definitely has their share, and I love seeing it. And actually, I like to look at patterns and numbers, and that's one of the things when I first started going down to San Francisco to some of those big dispensaries, which were just amazing to me. You know, when I was a kid or whatever, you drove up to a neighborhood and you gave a guy $50 and he left the car and he walked down a couple houses and he came back with whatever he came back with. You know, that's how you got weed in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s is, you know, unless you knew a dealer, you gave money to somebody and they took off and came back with whatever they came back with. And then once they opened these dispensaries, it was just like, oh my God, a kid in a candy store. You know, there's 30 varieties and clean, and you know what you're getting. You can smell it and see it. And I remember in there and standing in line, it was just all men. And I asked the guy when I come to the counter, I said, so what's the ratio of women to men who come to the store? And he said, oh, it's probably 90-1. And I said, man, that's a shame. That's a shame. But it's definitely changed since then. But it's something I've always noticed. And anyways, just an observation. I don't know whether that's here nor there. But ladies, grow the plant. I think you will love it. Bam. And you like green I don't know if you saw my logo, but I got a cool logo. Have you ever seen my logo that has the Mooka drawing on it and the bicycle girl? I love my logo. Let's see.
Let's see it.
Let's see here. Let's see if I can
one handy.
Hold on what I got for you. I got a little sticker somewhere. Let's see here. I like this kind of artwork and I'm very attracted to. Let's see if I can. Some people know what my logo looks like. See that Mooka? It was actually an advertisement for a bicycle from around 1900. So if things are over 100 years old, you can actually steal them. So I stole his artwork and I like a pimp, and I use it. But very nice, kind of cool. It's not easy to vectorize though, so it's not easy to put on a T-shirt. But we try. We try. You know, the latest little project I got sucked into, which I'm just balls deep into right now, and I'm probably a little bit over my head, is I turned one of my grow rooms into a tissue culture lab. So actually tonight and I'm doing a little video on it, and you can see the progress. But you need a really clean environment. It's not like mycology and growing mushrooms, but I want to get into the area of germinating really old seeds, because there's some methods that you can do tissue culture, and cleaning up old genetics. You can get rid of some systemic diseases that way. So it's a little bit over my head right now, but and I love these things where it's a learning process. And I have some videos coming out on my channel probably tomorrow, the first one where I actually make up the media and then I sterilize it. And then I'm going to tissue culture. I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to do 2 different kinds of cannabis, a really good cut of Blue Dream that I've had for years. That's just me and my partner. Killer production, quality, quantity, Blue Dream cut, and a purple runts. And I'm going to do some bamboo, and I'm going to tissue culture some Mimosa hostilis, a very good source of dimethyltryptamine. And then I think that's and some old seeds. I have some like 20-year-old seeds that I'm going to try to germinate through the process. So to me, that's what I'm going through right now. It's kind of what's distracting me. But I'll have some videos coming out on my channel going through that journey. And I'm sure there'll be some failures along the way, but hopefully I'll get up and motor through them. But it's kind of tricky in the sense that you really have to worry about sterilization, and you're breeding basically in a I don't even know the word, aseptic environment. So you actually wash the plants in alcohol and bleach, and which is so counterintuitive, but that's how you sterilize the plant matter, and then you hopefully you can grow it. So that's the little rabbit hole I've been going down lately. But fascinating journey. If you're interested in tissue culture, come along for the ride. But very fascinating. That's my project right now, what Green Bicycles is doing. Anyways, I don't know. I've said a lot, dude. You've been more than patient.
We're
You've been
definitely interested. We're definitely interested in that. Rafter grow's been kind of popping on a little bit, helping us out understand it a little bit as well.
yes,
And it's
yes.
something that definitely interests. It should interest us all. I mean, what a way to to be able to pop seeds and move along and keep our phenos that we've worked so hard to find. You know what I mean? I'm a pheno hunter. I am a flat out pheno hunter. I pop hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of seeds. And that's not even fair. That's strains. I shouldn't even be saying a cultivar. Cultivars is what I should be saying. But seeds, you know, number of seeds isn't even correct. The cultivars is, but and I'll never be done. And I hate the fact of like, and I've done it this year. Just X'd off a good 20 strains so I could move forward. You know what I mean? And if I could be tissue culturing them before the way out, and so one day, I could look back and, bring back a nice clean cutting, that'd be awesome. And as well, I've been on the record as saying that, as people like yourself and Rafter are kind of showing us, nudging us along on how to do it, these breeders should be doing it. I can understand, working with a bank. That shit's costly, but if we can, pick it up and do it ourselves, but moreover for the breeders, because the genetic lines are getting so friggin' messed up. As far as strain lineages. Now, if a breeder could, not have to worry about keeping a clone going over the years and, be able to not have to go back and source and find back new moms and dads and recreate strains. If they could just bring the original mom and dad out and recreate this some patch of seeds like that, then hell yeah. It seems stupid not to be doing it. I mean,
Well,
and actually, moreover, when I was I was like starting to worry about my seeds too, because I've got a collection, you know what I mean? And some of them are pretty old. And, as of late, people are like, oh man, you got to pop them, man. You got to. And I'm like, then I started listening to people like yourself and Kevin Jordry and a lot of other people. I even asked Kevin when I had him on the show, I'm like, should I be as worried? And he's like, no, sit on them bitches. The chances of, us being able to pop them with success, later on in petri dishes and shit like that we're coming a long ways. So it's more important to, hold the genetics than it is to try to pop them right now and fuck them up. And that's what I would be worried about. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
no, that's actually
I'm
one of the,
excited about the
yeah, when I started to look into it,
science. I'm sorry.
I didn't realize it, but most, like if you go to say a Home Depot or whatever and you go out to their plants, I I heard that term up to 80% of them are tissue cultured. And it's very common. It's not a fringe thing at all. And it's starting to catch on in the cannabis industry. But most of the plants you buy at a big box store are from a tissue culture. And two of the big benefits of tissue culture are you mentioned one is it's real easy to store genetics. You can store, you could have 300 plants in a test tube, and you could have 300 plants in like 6 weeks or so from just one test tube. So it's a really good way to store genetics in a small area. It's also a way you also, like I said earlier, is through that sterilization of the plant matter process with the bleach and alcohol, you can actually you can get rid of some systemic issues that develop over time. And like, I've had a, like I said, a blue dream for probably 15 years. That's just clone after clone after clone. And a lot of people say, oh, that it dies or what. I don't think genetics change, to be honest with you, because there's no breeding. Um, but what happens is you pick up shit along the way, like I've heard powdery mildew systemic, or these other little diseases or viruses that get in your plant, and you just keep cloning them, and the plant kind of degrades over time because typically a plant only lives a year. It doesn't, they're not geared up to grow year after year after year for 10, 20 years. And I know there are clones that are like that. So the tissue culture allows that to kind of get reset, those genes to get reset and lose some of those the diseases or pests or whatever it is. Another thing is the deal with seeds is seeds are actually, going back to fertilizer a little bit. A seed to me is really important to be in a fertilizer mix or a nutrient mix, because a seed contains everything it needs for life. A seed is a little compact, energy source. And over time that, it's starches and sugars and such inside the seed. And over time they do break down. They do, through UV radiation or time or heat, those those energy molecules that are the storage in the seeds, they do break down over time. And when you're dealing with tissue culture, basically you're introducing the growing medium is super rich in vitamins and hormones and nutrients. That's what you're doing. You're making a super rich nutrient gel. It's in an agar, and that's what your material grows in. So if you introduce an old seed to that, you're allowing that seed to tap into that energy source. So even though the internal energy source of the seed, it might be long gone or very much degraded, the tissue culture process allows you to tap into an external energy source. And again, I'm just experimenting with it. Now, you were saying earlier, it's stupid that people aren't doing it. I'm at the point where I'm stupid to try it, because today was my first kind of jumping into it. I got my clean room built, I'm all ready to go. So it's a little more involved but that's anything that's satisfying usually, it takes some effort, and I'm right in the middle of that process, and enjoying it at the moment, that's for sure. But yeah, those three kind of areas fascinate me. And I think, if you could have a service where you can germinate old seeds, I think that would be very beneficial to this community, because one of mine, and I don't know, it's very, when you talk about genetics, when I was a kid in high school, way back in the day, they used to have this thing called skunk weed. Now, it's not skunk number one, but there was weed that smelled like a skunk. It was, if someone was at a house and they opened up a bag of weed, the entire house smelled like a dead skunk, like putrid and pungent. And it's very nostalgic for a lot of us. And then when they went to indoor growing, they got away from that genetics because they were trying to hide the smells from neighbors or whatever. So that really skunky weed kind of disappeared. I haven't seen it. Kevin Jodry hasn't seen it. He's one of the breeders that's trying to get it from somewhere. And I would love to refine that again, because I'm an old man and it's nostalgic, but it was also killer weed, but it was nothing. And I've been to a lot of shows. I've seen a lot of weed. It's not out there anymore. Maybe it's out there somewhere, but I sure have not run into it. I talked to many seed breeders who have this, who say the same thing. A lot of them are trying to get it back. Some say they have it. Some say they're going to release it. I don't know, but the tissue culture process might allow me to, get into some guy's old shoebox or something and pull out a seed from the 70s and maybe bring it back to life is one of my hopes. But yeah, that old skunk weed, I would love to get a bag of that.
So me and Genetic Memory Farms discussed this topic during his spotlight there, and we were both pretty much on the same page, or at least I felt like. We kind of think that it's just been lost due to several reasons. One, we obviously the pungent smell and bringing it indoors, obviously because of the pungent smell, growers may stepped around it because of that, because the filtration couldn't cover it up. We could see that, but again, I can't buy it. I'm a lot of us that would have done that back then. I wasn't lucky enough to have it. Otherwise, I think I still probably would have had it just for this reason. We're outlaws. We knew the chance we were taking, and we were going to do it regardless. So even if it stank, I think we still would have took the chance on growing the skunk because everybody wanted it. Especially back then, you could practically name your price for the shit if you could if produce it. So yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think even I think we'd have found better ways, rented houses out in the boonies. Just I don't think we would have just went. Yeah, I'm not growing that stinky bitch again. So I don't think that may have had something to do with it, but not as much. We kind of come more along the lines of may have lost it through indoor cultivation, like you said earlier. Terpenes are a defense. So if that cultivar, that phenotype that went around was outside and was stank like that to keep deer away and shit like that. Now we take it indoors, we give it artificial light, we take away the threat. Now the plant has figured out, well, I don't have to produce that terpene profile no more. And that's one of the reasons why we think we're having such a hard time bringing it back is, we're indoor breeding now, and for the most case. So thus a lot of these threats that would have been around then when the plant was being cultivated aren't being reproduced here in our friggin' tents and our rooms. So I think that, we both kind of thought there that was one of the drawbacks of finding it now. We just aren't providing the correct breeding environment to bring it back.
I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery because it, when I experienced skunk, it was kind of before indoor growing, and so it was grown outdoors. And believe it or not, there's a lot of cannabis still grown outdoors. In fact, I'd almost venture to say a lot more is grown outdoors than indoors, just because the possible, it's you grow a lot more outdoors. And I'm, why didn't it stay growing outdoors? Why didn't, because it was originally grown outdoors. I can guarantee you that. I don't know. It's still a mystery. It's still kind of it's kind of a holy grail for a lot of people. And obviously someone else has talked about it. And I don't know if you've ever run across it. I'm not sure your vintage, but this is late 70s, early 80s is when I want to say that was out there. And then, like I said, that was back in the day when you gave somebody or you knew the deal or whatever, and that was what was in the town at the time or among your friends. And yeah, it was, but yeah, it was very memorable. Even tie sticks too. We used to get tie sticks once in a while that just had this incredible, still never re-experienced that kind of a vanilla spicy taste to it, and it was just so strong. But I, I'm dying of COVID, I think. I hope not. But yes, some of the nostalgic stuff is always, nostalgia is always kind of cool for as you get older to remember back. Maybe it wasn't even that good. I don't know, but anyways, I would sure like to get it back into the I think you'd do really well at a cup. I tell you, I think if I did find that skunk and I found it and I got it going, I think I might enter a cup just to blow people away and say I got it. But other than that, I don't know. I've been on here a long time, and I'm getting kind of tired, and I think I've said way more than I should have. But I appreciate you letting me on, and doing a little branding. Come check out my show, or check on Amazon.com, or actually get in touch with me personally, and I can give you much better deals and bulk rates. And for you, Eagle Gardens, I definitely want to send you some samples to give you a try, and maybe just do a side by side, and you never know. You just never know, right?
Yeah, I would like to do that. I wanted to get you on the show before I even thought about it. That was your first response when you DM'd me.
Well,
I
well,
was
you
like,
know what?
hey, wait a minute. I'm not trying to get shot for
No, no.
that, man.
Okay, well,
Can I
no,
at least talk to you first?
yeah. I want you to wine me and dine me. No, but when you sent me that DM, I scrolled up above and you had asked about samples. And I never really got back to you. So that's the reason I said that. But I do like to give it, we give out quite a bit of samples to get people, that's kind of my advertising. That's what we do. T-shirts and stickers and samples. And it's working. It's working so far. Um, but yeah, I'd love to get you to try some, or anyone else out there listening who is it's going to do it. The only thing, the one thing I ask is give it an honest try. To do it like follow the instructions, and it's what'll
Hey,
amaze you.
Pat,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
swipe over look at that message again and swipe over to the side. I bet you that message right there where it says samples
Yeah.
is back from when like Sub was talking with you again and you actually were running the promotion. Just DM Green Bicycle samples and he'll send you some. That DM's like 2 years old, brother.
There it is. See, I didn't see that. That's from December 11th, 2018. See, but I'm a little late. Sometimes I'm slow. Sometimes I drop the ball. You fell through the cracks. So that's a reason. That's why I offered.
That's why you said you said, man, you said samples. I was like, holy shit, did I? And I thought about it. I was sitting here as you said it. I'm like, man,
So you did though, right?
Yeah,
You did
that was when. No, I never got them. I
No,
never got it. Well, obviously, I never got a reply from you.
No,
because the next one was from the show.
That's right. So I felt a little bad about that.
Otherwise, they would have had.
No, I'm going to get you a Green Bicycle shirt to wear once in a while, a sticker for your table, maybe. Yeah, I'll let you. I'll help sponsor your show, maybe. I'm always thinking of new things, ways to market in this new era, and that's one of the reasons I typically I would not want to stare in a camera and talk and ramble on, but it somehow sometimes it works. And what else, it's either that or do nothing. So I'm doing this, and I appreciate allowing me to have access to your audience. I know we have a lot of overlap. Your name has gotten mentioned a lot on my show. That's when I started tuning in, and yeah, I think I knew we had a common denominator of Subcool, and a lot of the people in my show, that's a common denominator. How they found out about me is through Subcool, which again was just such a shame, just such a shock. We were actually on this. He was so, a day or two before he passed, he had so many ideas. And he was so positive about the direction that we were going in, and that's why it was such a shock. I knew he had a lot of pretty heavy duty medical issues going on for a while. I've known that, and some pretty, some treatments that were, not extraordinary to say the least, but his attitude was just always so positive, and that's why it was such a shock when I got the news. But yeah, we were on to some good things there for a minute, and I'm glad our relationship, we actually be, I guess we can say partners at some level, and yeah, Miss Subcool, great, one of the luminaries, and there's a number of them that come out in public. Eddie Lepp, and I could name, if I had better memory, I could ramble off a few names out there, but yeah, he'll be missed, and that's one of the reasons I kind of do the show, and I try to be really generous with. I don't try, I'll tell you what I think works, and I'll be honest. I could be bullshit from the point that other things might not work well, but I try to share as much as I can, and that model seems to work. If you're generous, it all comes back to you eventually. So, anything else? Is there any other questions? And let's wrap this voice so I can go pee because I got an old man's bladder. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I think
The only other things I'd like to say is, keep the Zoom number. If there's a rabbit hole, you're more than welcome to jump on and talk and teach us some more stuff. It's kind of, you had to do this, get the key for the rabbit hole, basically. So you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you.
Well, I
And the
appreciate
other
that.
only thing I'd like to get from you real quick before you go is like a sound bite. Basically, this is Green Bicycles, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 219. You can embellish, take away, add, subtract, whatever, but basically that.
Hey, episode 219. See, now you're putting me on the spot because now I
Yes,
actually
sir.
have to because now I have a script to follow. A little soundbite. This is Green Bicycles. I'm here on the Eagle Garden Show, episode number 219, Talking Shit with Eagle. Glad to be here. Thank you, Eagle. Will that fucking work, sir? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Sorry. Go use that restroom. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Yeah, I saw some of your shows, and I'd like to come on and do some rabbit hole shit once in a while. I can go down that with the best of them. So, good night and peace. You need to. You're a fucking night owl, dude. But anyways, West Coast time here is 11:30. OMG. Good night, sir, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for watching. If you're still watching, peace. You take me out of here, or
yeah.
all righty.
I could kick you out if you want. Thank you for coming on, my friend. Looking forward to seeing you in the rabbit hole.
All right, take care, bud.
Patrick from Green Bicycles. Hope you have enjoyed this episode. You can catch him on his channel. I believe Cheetah Man posted it up earlier this evening. Cheetah Man, if you could help me out with that link. You can find him on Instagram, Green Bicycles. You can find him on past episodes of Operation Grow. You can find him on this episode if you want to rewind it and listen again. And hopefully you will see him in the future on a rabbit hole or another episode. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to probably hit the head myself real quick and fill up my coffee, fill up my tray. Hopefully you guys will follow me back and jump in the rabbit hole with me. We still got a few hours to go before the official shutdown of the show. Holy shit, 68 watching. You guys are completely awesome. Yeah, it's time for the rabbit hole. If you guys don't want to continue on for the next 2 hours, I can understand that. I don't want to dominate too much time. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for hanging out. Please do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives, and hopefully we'll make this world a better place very soon than not. Stupid ass. I'll see you guys in a few. Thank you for watching.